All right. Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, wherever you are, guys. First of all, thanks for joining the free seminar that is going to talk more in depth about the essay writing and essay strategy and essay coaching. Um, so let's go to the next slide, please. Yeah. My name is Upaji Kotapalli. I'm the founder and CEO of GrowME. Uh, at GrowMe, we have been helping students for the past 10 plus years with their college journey. We offer end-to-end services, and today we are going to emphasize on the most important step in the college application process, which is essay writing. And we cannot find a better person than who we have today, Kelly Britt. Kelly Britt is a former Stanford admissions officer, highly regarded and highly respected uh, college coach and mentor and counselor, not only across California but across the country. And we are
And the
extremely,
world.
yeah, in the world, yes. And we are extremely happy and privileged to have her today, joining us and taking this seminar. So please, please get all your questions up. Please make the most out of this seminar. Uh, and I hope this will be very helpful session for everyone. All right. Um, with this, I'm going to pass the control to Kelly, and Kelly, take it from here.
So thanks for joining, everyone. The main point is ideally I'll cover a lot of your questions, concerns, overview in my discussion, and then we'll save a few minutes at the end for additional questions. So the first point of, what is the main purpose of the essays, particularly in the US context? I know this varies by country, but it's a very unique process here, nuanced, and it's really about that holistic review, which is why the essays matter so much in US colleges. The reason behind that is that the essays are really the only element that can humanize your application to show who you are beyond your academics, grades, test scores, how you think, what matters to you personally, how you make meaning of your experiences, and what you might contribute overall as a human to our campus community. So, as grades, rigor, activities show what you've done, but essays really help reveal the person behind the resume. And when you consider the order of your application as well, after we've assessed the other components within the app, your transcript, your recommendations, your activities list, etc., this helps us form an idea of your application persona and what we might imagine you to be about. The next step is really the main piece that's in your hands to share in your own words what those all mean so that it's not just based on those logistics. And ideally, we're building up towards that so that it is aligning with your intentions, it's cohesive, it's memorable and unique in a way that only you can write about. And at Stanford in particular, we call this layer texture. Your academics, we evaluate 40%, extracurriculars, 30%. That remaining 30% is the texture which informs the essays. Okay, we can move forward. And are we able to turn off the sound when people send a message in the chat to mute that? Thank you. Okay, so in terms of what do colleges actually derive from these essays, this is what helps admissions officers to understand, again, who will you be as a whole person in our campus community. Remember that thankfully it's still humans that read applications, not computers. And because of that, we admit humans, not resumes. So that goes back to what I mentioned about texture. So we're using these to better determine what kind of human will you be beyond the classroom, what kinds of discussions will you be involved in or leading, what causes are important to you specifically? How do you pursue your passions? What unique aspects of your background would you contribute to the diversity of our campus overall? And in how you think your personal life experiences and overall how you show up in the world. You may think that we can determine that somewhat from activities, but it's not really in your own words. Can everyone please mute? I'm hearing lots of background noise.
Please go on mute, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. So your goal is to compel me as the admissions officer. I always tell my students, compel me to pick up the phone and continue the conversation from your essays so that it is a human dialogue. It's not just passively addressing the prompts. Okay, next slide. Thanks. So today we're going to get into specifics around what are these top 5 pitfalls to avoid during your essay writing. So the top one being lack of self-awareness. So the first thing to consider before you dive into how to approach the essays is, this is also meant to be a self-discovery process, not just what looks good on paper to get me admitted to this specific school, but getting to know yourself, all those elements I just mentioned about what really matters to you, what is genuine, so that you do come across as authentic and not forced. The more you have a clear sense of you, your identity, the more naturally these essays will flow too. So many students describe their experiences often without reflecting on why did they matter to you? What was the meaning behind them? How they changed them as a whole beyond just the classroom? And what does it reveal again about your overall values, your character, your intrinsic traits? Admissions officers, we're not just asking the what happened, it's what does this experience really reveal about who you are as a whole? And at Stanford, for example, it happens all the time that a lot of essays sound impressive overall, but after reading them, can't really get a sense of who you are as a person. And these are the kind of topics we discuss in those final admissions committee meetings of what did I learn new about the student that I couldn't already understand from the rest of their application? If that's not coming through so that we can advocate for you, that's often why students are not offered admission. And those things, the strongest essays that come through are the ones showing reflection, vulnerability, that true self-awareness, and not just only linked to accomplishments. Let's go to the next one. So lack of strategy. So on this note too, students often just randomly start without understanding what each essay type or what prompt is actually evaluating in you, how those essays will fit into the larger application, and what narrative they're building overall. So strong application, again, should be cohesive, not repetitive or disconnected. The point is that each essay serves its own purpose, and the more you have a sense of yourself, your narrative, that persona that is essential that you want to emphasize to colleges, the more clearly this will come through. So those essays should always strategically complement the activities, your intended major, your values, your intellectual interest, and your personal qualities, not just your grades and what courses you pursue. Especially, for example, if I kind of, and we'll be getting into this more specifically in the boot camps, but for example, overview, the Common App personal statement should ideally highlight your intrinsic traits, self-reflection, a specific anecdote, topic, activity that has shaped you overall, and what that will mean moving forward in our campus. The UC essays, different from the personal statement, they should contextualize your achievements to understand what you did around the opportunities you were given, or even how you went through those or went above those and challenges and shaped your own opportunities. So overcoming obstacles, etc. And really, you'll see in those too, we want you to highlight core traits related to sort of the pillars of the UC system, which is your drive, your intellectual curiosity, your initiative, your overall community contribution, and diversity of your experience. Whereas the third level of supplemental essays, which of course include many different topics, and every college chooses their own, which tells you a lot too about what they value, what they want you to emphasize. These should go into depth more about, again, your motivations behind what you pursue, why these experiences matter to you, and what they brought to you of who you are now. And through these meaningful extracurriculars, you'll be highlighting, like I mentioned, for example, Stanford, intellectual curiosity is at the core, social entrepreneurship is at the core, innovation, carving your own path, coloring outside the lines, outside of the box thinking. The more you know about the school and its ethos, what it's recognized for, the more naturally you should be able to address these essays. Okay, let's go to the next. So alignment. On that note, one of the biggest mistakes we see is the essays not really aligning with the student's actual application story. So for example, if you're applying as an engineering major because you really want to get into that field, but your essays only discuss kind of generic leadership or maybe sports elements or a one class you took related to engineering, but without really highlighting a specific intellectual connection, obviously that doesn't show alignment. And the more that's forced, the more we lose interest and move on. What we're really looking for is that consistency, again, behind academics, activities, recommendations, the essays, of course, and your future goals. Of course, there's a lot of talk about, strategically deciding your major, maybe because one seems in theory less competitive, etc. But if you don't have a narrative and the background story to support it and be able to articulate it compellingly in your essays, obviously that will not align. And at Stanford, we often discuss this again of, is this authentic? Is this forced? Is this what mom and dad want, but the student doesn't actually show any curiosity or passion for it? The strongest essays that do come through are that clear through line throughout. Even if you've explored multiple interests, changed your mind, pivoted on your intended major, etc., we still want to build a relevant narrative around that. So make sure that you're thoroughly researching every school, as mentioned, to understand that and how that aligns with how that school will uniquely fit your goals as a mutual fit, not just because of high rankings and reputation. Okay, let's go to the next. So overdoing things, this is another aspect that comes out a lot where students, especially high performing students, tending to try too hard to sound perfect, to sound profound, to maybe use overly sophisticated vocabulary, sometimes forcing a dramatic storytelling that isn't necessarily relevant because they feel that, they've read a few essays online that were very dramatic and thinking that's what they need to get in. Often it's the most, seemingly insignificant or simple aspects of your personal journey that really shape a compelling application. As well as the last point of people trying to really pack every single accomplishment into one essay rather than diving into depth about one specific component of that, which usually ends up being a stronger balance anyway. And those kinds of essays, they read as not only forced, but performative, unnatural, emotionally forced, and again, more of like a repetition of a resume versus giving us more of the background story behind the resume itself. So beyond sounding, just impressive, focus on being simple, genuine, and reflective. And last but not least, which I know this is a big challenge, also working with, too many cooks in the kitchen, where you may have maybe working with your own high school counselor in that context, maybe additionally with an admissions consultant, maybe your parents, maybe AI, unfortunately. and getting, excessive or conflicting feedback. And what that results into is, the essays really lose the student's real voice. Keeping in mind, all of those people or aspects may help you form ideas, brainstorm topics, etc. But we're admitting you. And if you don't have it to back that up once you get to college, how will you thrive and how will you know if this is a genuine fit for you? So if you're kind of forcing things into the essay writing a point, that's one level. But remember, there will also be interviews. Will you be able to discuss those things in a natural way verbally beyond writing them down? And the result that comes of that, again, beyond losing the student's voice, things that can read as more overly generic, especially if you're looking at AI, overly polished, especially if mom and dad are helping you based on what they think admissions officers may want to see. And then again, no longer really feeling that emotionally believable narrative as a whole. Plus, keep in mind that experienced admissions officers, we can often tell when an essay has been overworked by too many people, too many approaches. And what really lands is essays that still sound like a thoughtful teenager. Of course, you're going to proofread, edit, have others review your essay content. But if it doesn't sound like your authentic voice of how a teen actually talks as well, clearly we'll understand that this is not really who you are, but more of like what I call a corporate press release. And that's where you also lose that connection with admissions officers. So, to kind of overview of what all this means. So, how to stand out as unique in this way, keeping in mind again that only you can tell your personal story, why you pursue what you pursue, what it means to you, and how this will look moving forward. Remember that your applications are reviewed regionally. So we're looking at that within the context of your school, everyone having access to the same curriculum, the same opportunities within your school community, but only you can address how that shaped you specifically or why you joined those also beyond your campus community. So keep in mind what I said earlier on too about your unique life experiences, your perspective on the world. Think about how you stand out from your peers when you're talking about these different topics or how you pursue them unique to your school. That's really what's going to help you stand out. And again, I have a lot of students all the time saying, well, my life's been pretty easy on paper, nothing dramatics really happened, etc. That doesn't mean you don't have a compelling story, and this usually informs my first sessions with students too, to develop that narrative and essays of, for example, why Stanford? Most common response is, you know, access, top research, number one in the world for whatever. But that doesn't tell me why for you. It doesn't tell me why your specific mutual fit. A solid response is, well, I attended this environmental policy forum last summer that turned me on to Professor XYZ's research that also aligns with my, presenting at a UN conference about youth policy, etc. And only that school has that specific initiative and intersection. I need to be part of that research team, right? This is showing that clarity, that specific alignment, that understanding of yourself and your identity. So again, the point is it's not about perfection, it's clarity, authenticity, and helping the reader genuinely understand who you are as a whole. And then the last component, which again is kind of what we've been emphasizing, but this is a little behind the scenes. So overall, your goal is to get that admissions officer to be your champion and defend why your application should be saved in that final committee review. So again, you're building an advocate there. You're trying to develop a universal human connection that, although we won't share your same exact experiences, but it's the way you share them that can build that human connection so that we are compelled to move you forward and show why you stand out in that lot. So what that really looks like, Typically, colleges will have a first reader assigned to your region, and they'll have a clear understanding of your school context to again understand how you may stand out within that school context starting point. Keep in mind your app is given about 5 minutes total to review the entire thing. So your goal again is intentional, cohesive, clear. If we have to search around and fill in the gaps from the essays not matching, aligning, etc., you've slowed down the process, you've lost our interest, you've confused us, then we don't have a way to advocate for why we should save your app. Secondly, there's often a second reader assigned after that, and that's often someone who may have a specific background alignment with something specific in your app. So, for example, I have an arts background, so sometimes people might bring me in to see how impactful their arts narrative relates as kind of a second layer. Or if they're an athletic recruit, people that have worked more on sports recruitment aspect, or maybe they have a more in-depth understanding from a specific high school that they could add to that layer. So that's kind of your second advocate on more nuances. And then that final committee meeting. So again, once we get through those layers, all applications are passed. Once we pass that initial review process, then we're discussing all the apps to decide what group they are of admit, waitlist, or deny. And it's a very drawn out process, but again, that initial level review is about 5 minutes. So the more you can get clear on that narrative, that app persona, which you would be developing with your college consultant too, sort of thinking of it as like an elevator pitch of how can I summarize what matters to me, what I'll contribute, how I will approach your school specifically in maybe 2 lines maximum, then we can build the narrative to support that. And last but not least, next slide, thanks. So what's the byproduct? As I've been mentioning, the overview here is determining how this student will not only fit, but thrive. Remember, college is all about getting out of your comfort zone, building independence, maturity, defining who you are. Where will you best thrive? Not because of rankings, but because of fit and how you're able to show that. So who will you be in our community as a person, as a human? Again, beyond transcripts, test scores, because those alone only open the door, but they don't get you through the door. So remember, ultimately, while many other countries approach it differently, US standards are very different. If your achievements alone got you accepted, then how would we differentiate to build a diverse cohort? And the last thing I want to emphasize on that, especially around this time of year, of pretty much everything else has been decided, your grades, what your recommenders will discuss about you, your test scores, all of that, your activities and what impact or results you've gotten through those. At that point, the only thing that's really truly in your hands and your control is how you write about them. So I can't emphasize enough the power of a compelling essay. And trust me, in these final admissions committee meetings, it's often that which we discuss because we've seen all the activities, we've seen all the accomplishments, especially at Ivy Plus top tier schools like Stanford. It's often that compelling narrative behind them that saves the day and that gets us talking. Okay, thank you.
Awesome, awesome, fantastic. Thank you so much, Kelly, for that very detailed and very to the point explanation. There was a couple of questions I think I could see on the chat. Maybe we can take them up before I go into this. So Mohit, you were asking about some research work, right? Can you please elaborate on that? Was that Mohit? The question
Also remember this is an essay boot camp, so please keep it aligned because people joining are here for that. You know, if we have time, I'm happy to address more nuances, but the point is this is a group discussion, so anything very specific not aligned, that's not the point of this call. I see things about, you know, specific research with a professor. That's not essay writing, but I can address it quickly on that. You're free to do cold emails, reaching out to a professor if you don't already have one in your network. If you're not already working with an education company like GrowMe that's helping you identify those ideally, so you're being strategic about it. The main point is, make this brief, the more you align with that professor's research, the more they're compelled to respond, right? They don't need to respond to you. You're a minor, you know, applying, you're not a student yet because their focus is on their current students and their research centers and initiatives. So showing them, you know, are you already actively contributing to that field? How can you show that in your resume when you reach out to them? Not just, hey, I want to get involved in aerodynamics, blah, blah, blah. You're doing that. I want to go to Stanford. Show them that you're already an aspiring colleague. That's, you know, in essence, how to start that. But there's also tons of Stanford specific research opportunities at the high school level. You can start looking into those. Some are larger groups, some are more specific, related to different fields. Some are very selective. Some are also, you know, aligned with an academic mentor. So there's really a lot of different ways to approach that.
Thank you for that. So how do we approach, you mentioned cold calling, so is it through LinkedIn or like, through,
Yeah, I'll just address that quickly again. And any questions related to this webinar would be great so that, you know, we focus on that. Yeah, again, it's up to you. You'll see on the website who's teaching what. You'll have access to their profiles. Stanford's website tends to be quite thorough. So often, you know, you'll see which research center they're aligned with, what are their publications, what courses are they teaching. And then from there, you know, you could also look at LinkedIn in particular, but their emails are typically published online through the website anyway. So again, you know, you have access to do that, but making sure that you've done that in-depth research before sending, you know, kind of a generalized outreach. And again, I would start with, who do you have access to already in your network? Are you already working with an academic mentor? They may have affiliations at some of the schools you're looking at. And another point to keep in mind, since we're on that, before I wrap it up, just because you have a Stanford, for example, as Stanford as an example, a Stanford affiliated an activity, initiative, mentor, etc., that doesn't mean you're guaranteed for Stanford admission, but it does show that, right, you're seeing an alignment. Even like doing a Stanford summer program, you get a sense of how Stanford operates. You're building your network there. You may work with an instructor in a program that might connect you to another opportunity, or maybe you start research from that course, etc. But just want to make sure, you know, it's not that that's a must have. And I get that question a lot of, you know, oh, I want to go to Stanford as my top choice, but, you know, my research is under a Princeton professor. That's not what we're looking at. It's the overall impact and contribution to your field, not the name tied to it. The same applies, because this might come up now too, of the pay to play. When people are concerned about that, keep in mind that everything is pay to play. There are free options out there. You can also do self-guided independent research. But if you're looking at like research organizations, opportunities that are structured and help you get to those final steps for publication, conference attendance, etc., other than the ones that offer financial aid for low income families, everything is still pay to play. We're not looking at that. And you don't need to put the name of an organization, you know, that helped you structure your research. You need to put the research title. What are the impacts that you built with it? And again, how is that contributing to the field? That's the overall result that we'll look at, not the name connected. Like in this example, you wouldn't put I worked with GrowMe to write my essays, right? You would just write solid essays.
yes.
Right. So
Thank you.
Let's
yeah,
see, Grant. So I
why
don't see any questions other than research.
Yeah,
If
no, I did
anyone
have one other question. Like with the AI, you mentioned that the essay should not appear as over prepared, and it should be representative or reflect what a 10 would typically, write. But I was wondering, with the AI, have you seen a qualitative improvement in the essay writing? Because I'm sure people are taking help of AI to polish the content. So just wanted to
Mhm.
get some feedback
Yeah,
in terms
good
of.
question. I not qualitative for sure. More so, and this is, how we're all maybe using it of organizing ideas, idea creation, just like, how GrowMe supports students aligning with that to get maybe an outline going, brainstorming a specific topic unique to the student, the structuring around that, ideas to support it, all of that, especially if they struggle with their writing abilities. But quality, definitely not. Because again, remember, it's the algorithm is summarizing all these generalizations, it's not customized to a personal journey. And also keep in mind that, you could plug that into AI as well. And I've tried it to see, how students might interpret that on their end. But things like tone. So, for example, back to the personal statement, we're looking at, your intrinsic traits, for example. So even the tone of your essay will show that without saying, I'm optimistic, I'm this. The way you write about it through that tone will come through versus the what. It's the how, right? So that's where kind of the AI, gets a little tricky to interpret. But by all means, if it's helping to form structure, outlines, things to consider as a starting point, just like prep for any kind of project, that's what colleges would expect. But if everyone's plugging in similar ideas for similar prompt, etc., you can imagine we're getting basically the same essay always.
right? And to
Thank you.
just summarize, you please do not use AI for writing your essays. You'll be shooting yourself in the foot, right? Colleges can identify these essays in 2 seconds, and they'll be outrightly rejecting them, right? So never use AI for writing your essays.
And also, again, that just goes back to, even if you did that, even if it didn't get red flagged, etc., even if you get admitted, etc., what are you going to do when you're in college, when you're in classroom discussions, when you're, contributing to projects, forums, etc.? You don't have a chat bot in your hand to do that. We look for real thinkers, critical thinking, bigger picture concepts, human ideas, and the creativity involved around that too, right? And how did the rest of us get through the life before AI to build colleges? Well, that's another topic.
Yeah. You want to take up the next question, Kelly?
Is it this last one here? Best way to go about selecting a topic for Common App essay. So, that's something we'll definitely get into depth in these specific boot camps. There's no, ratio,
Yeah.
all of that. Again, it's looking at your persona, I mean, your narrative overall, definitely not overlapping, like I said. So supplemental essays are intended for that, to address supplemental information that the school thinks is specific to their ethos and what they're looking for, expanding on your activities, your coursework, why major, what's your most meaningful extracurricular, how have you overcome a challenge, etc. So also looking at that, we don't want to see any overlap. And the reason it's called a personal statement, right? It's your personal journey around that. So it could still be something overall related to, for example, your intended field, let's say it's international relations. If that's at the core of who you are as a person, not just your intended major, because maybe mom was a diplomat and you've hopped around the world, lived in 5 countries, you speak 6 languages, you're developing an app for, youth language learners, you're attending United Nations conferences. If that's who you are as a core, by all means, you can dive into that, but not related to the activity itself, but more, what does this reveal about you as a human, right? So this is the point of this kind of counseling, is it's always customized to you. And you're not alone in asking this. We get these questions daily. The point is, there is no formula, there's no black and white, yes or no answer to anything, especially on the essays, the narrative building. If there were, then every app would be exactly the same,
Yeah.
right? And especially within the context of each individual school. Like, I just had a meeting today about how do I build my profile for MIT. I have great grades, I do a lot of music, etc. No mention at all about things that MIT actually looks for, like the maker mind, the creative building side around things, of being in these spaces with collaboration, etc. If you don't have an understanding of that, how will you write compelling supplemental essays, right? And these are the things we'll break down in the boot camps too, of what are they really asking, underneath the core of that prompt. And another tip, if I didn't mention already too, is please thoroughly read the full prompt. This happens all the time where they generally apply it. They don't even address every point of the prompt. And immediately we go next. If you can't read basic instructions, again, why would we think you're admissible for MIT if you can't read two sentences, right?
Yeah. And colleges are becoming more and more trickier. They're making these questions multiple parts. I mean, right? I mean, typically now the questions are having two parts or three parts or even four parts. I think it is deliberately they are doing because they want to make sure the students read the entire question first of all, and try to answer every piece of it, right? So
Right. And maybe this might relate to some people. I remember back in the day too that you'd hear a lot about, for example, like the Google hiring process. I'm sure there's a lot of parents here beyond students. They set it up intentionally in a way that if you can't understand the unique format of their process before at least two, then they already know you're not a fit, not because you passed and your background, your experience, etc., but they just based on that. So if you're not ready to approach that, then why would we admit you, right? And that even, this is something we can get more into depth with on the boot camp. But for example, Stanford doesn't have standard questions, why this major, why Stanford, etc. But the point is, every question in the Stanford supplementals are saying why and how explicit to Stanford, and it gives you unique insight to what matters to them, right? So paying attention to those specific phrases, questions they're asking, that also helps you understand their ethos, what you'll be talking about on campus, in the classroom, and beyond.
yep, yep.
I think I got through the chat questions. Any others on the essay side overall?
Yeah, while we are here, let's complete the questions, guys. Any other questions? Any other topics anybody want to deep dive relevant to the essay writing? Great questions, by the way.
And while we're waiting, if there's none further, another thing to keep in mind, of course, we still want to see, again, top grades, academic ability, how you pursue your passions beyond the classroom, etc. But and if maybe you're someone that realized your potential late in high school, maybe you don't stand out necessarily in your school context with the rigor, with your activities, etc. Maybe you're unclear on all of that. Maybe you've struggled and had a lot of setbacks, so your profile isn't very solid. One, of course, we need to consider, is that actually going to fit with the schools you're targeting? That's why a strategic school list is important. But remember, this other layer of the essays and the narrative development, that can obviously be your saving grace about addressing that. So, for example, the setbacks, how you uniquely self reflect on those. What did you do to bounce back? Are you actively, I struggled in all my math courses, but because I did XYZ, now I was selected to be a TA. Now I figured out how I learn math uniquely, and now I'm excelling at competitions. I developed my own math learning app for other teens. It's all about, again, that personal narrative behind it. So often that third layer within the essays can be the thing that balances out otherwise weaknesses.
Yeah,
Preparing the essay, rising senior, right? So good question. On that note too, when to prepare, keep in mind it's a journey, right? So more than anything, start thinking about the narrative of the questions I've been asking throughout this talk. Doesn't mean you sit down and write all the essays yet, but getting an idea, right, of who you are, what matters to you, how you show up in the world, what kind of fields you're already interested in exploring or contributing to exactly. And that way, even in a counseling problem, that's our approach too, of let's get this started now as part of the bigger picture so that we're not waiting until September of senior year to write a bunch of essays. It's a streamlined process we've been doing since day one, but especially in junior year when you're likely, formalizing your thoughts more, have more concrete takeaways to your activities and explorations. You've gone through more curriculum in and out of school so that you have something more to articulate. But definitely not waiting until the fall. And now is why we're offering the boot camps too, where, you know, aligned with your summer plans too, so that you already have a sense of what to look out for, what things you might want to address, how to align those with your apps as well. And on that note, I didn't really think about it, but these boot camps are open to not only rising seniors. If you already have a quite developed profile, a clear sense of all those elements, and you want to get a head start on how to approach the essays, not necessarily finalizing everything, by all means, you can start right now too.
Exactly, very good point. Uh, these boot camps are not exclusively for senior students only. And to add to what Kelly mentioned, uh, at GrowMe, we are going to give practice essays right from the day one you join us. Whether you are in ninth or 10th grade or you join us in 11th grade, we start giving you practice essays from day one, and we continuously give practice essays until you complete your 11th grade. Because as Kelly was saying, you cannot just wake up in the morning and say I want to write my essays today. No, it doesn't work that way. It needs a lot of practice, it needs a strategy, and it needs a lot of thinking in the process. So get started and get more practice with us.
And on that note, I want to address this last question. This is an excellent question. One, this is also why it's good. This is honesty more important or curated story? Again, curated, of course, in the sense of does it genuinely fit the narrative in an organic way? Positivity, as I mentioned, vulnerability is essential. That builds that compelling story because only you can tell it. So I'll give an example here too, and this is why it's good to work with a counselor. Some topics, of course, it's like comedy, right? Some topics are always going to be off-putting and maybe not worth, raising any concerns to college. That's the main thing, is that we're considering if it's something of a challenge, a setback, etc. Again, back to the bounce back. Is this going to be a concern ongoing, or has the student reflected on it, improved since then, and is now thriving as a result? So for example, this is a pretty hot topic, but I'm working with a student who had substance abuse issues. I'm just being real. Went to rehab, also missed a lot of school because of that. It's quite unfortunate, but actually in that time found his people and understood I want to be that peer mentor. And that's really where he helped work through this struggle too. And as a result, realized he wants to study psychology. He wants to be that coach for others. And through that, now the program has invited him back, and now he's a peer mentor. And he actually initiated the peer mentor program of this rehab center that they didn't have before. And another nuance that we're working on, again, it's all about personalized to the student. The student is also a photographer. So now we're building in kind of an art therapy component within that mentorship. So now he's highlighting his creative abilities, he's building community, he's connecting all these narrative elements. He's doing better than ever. He's being able to bounce back, make up for the lost time at school as well. And now it's a clear narrative of I needed to get through that challenge to understand that I want to be a psychologist, I want to support others, and I also have a creative background that I want to help others get through the photography lens. No pun intended. So that's what I mean. But of course, if it's a topic like that, for sure, bounce it off your counselors first so that if anything, we can focus on the way to approach it. Being honest is always great, but the main question admissions will have is this student likely to have a relapse or have they turned their life around as a result?
Right.
Can we go to the next slide about the boot camp so that we can
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
just.
yeah.
saw a lot of people left, so hopefully
Wait,
they
wait,
got
wait,
those
wait, wait, wait.
details.
I just want to
Mhm,
take 1 minute here. So, guys,
mhm.
I mean, as you might have realized, I mean, we are covering various topics on all different directions, right? So that's what we do at GrowMe. We 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 take care of your end to end, the whole 9 yards of college preparation, right from ninth grade, or even we are having students even from eighth grade now. From eighth grade all the way till 12th grade, we cover every aspect of your college preparation, the profile curation, the practice essays, the passion projects, the internships, the immersion programs, the research programs, paper publications, personality development, community programs, everything that is required by the colleges, we take care of, right? And so and then we jump onto your final phase, which is your college applications after you complete your 11th grade. So we complete the whole 9 yards of preparation, and we have various programs that can be offered in a la carte model or that can be offered in a packaged model. So contact us and register with us, and then we'll like to talk to you. Now let's getting on to the main focus of this presentation, which is the boot camps. So during summer, during the next 2 months, June and July, we have 6 boot camps that are organized, and these boot camps are split between Kelly and myself, and we are doing 3 boot camps each on similar topics. We are going to cover UCs, we are going to cover common up personal essay, and we are going to cover uh, supplementals. I mean, in each of these is boot camps. The main focus will be essay writing. The main focus will be essay strategy. Main focus will be the planning and the practice required for essays. But we use these boot camps to focus on one topic at a time, so that you get more insights on that particular topic, right? So please make a note of these boot camps. I mean, Kelly um, is most sought out counselor and essay coach out there. So her boot camps are at a premium price compared to the boot camps mine. But whatever boot camps fit into your financial bandwidth, your schedule, please do register. We have limited number of seats, and we are getting a lot of inquiries for this already. So please make a note of these schedules. Please make a note of these boot camp dates. So each boot camp is split into 2 sessions. Session one on day one, and there will be 1 day gap in between where the students will be asked to write an essay. And on the third day, which is our second session day, we will review these essays and then give the feedback. So they get a hands-on experience of writing the essays and a live review and comments given by either myself or Kelly, right? So this will be a great opportunity to kickstart your essay strategy, great opportunity to kickstart your essay journey. This will be a wonderful opportunity to get your hands dirty, to get the feel of what the college actually look for, what the admissions officers are actually looking in the essays. Without knowing this, no matter how much imagination you do, no matter how much searching on the internet you do, no matter how many YouTube videos you watch, you won't get the real gist, the real crux of the requirement as seen by the colleges. So please make a note of these dates and reach out to us.
Yeah, I'd like to point out that you guys are going to get special discount because you have participated in the webinar today. So please do reach out to us for get availing that special discount. And we'd be really happy to help you guys. And as you can see, we have really experienced people in the team who will coach the kids to get going with their getting the story and get going with their initial draft of the essay itself. So do avail the special discount that we're going to offer for the webinar participants. And We look forward to working with you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Mohit. Thank you and everybody. So yeah, again, just a quick summary of our a la carte services, right? We offer services for passion projects during the summer. We offer packages for summer planning. How what your kid should be doing during the summer, whether it is in summer after eighth grade or ninth grade or 10th grade. You reach out to us. We'll come up with a complete strategy and list of activities how best you can do during your summer, whether you are traveling, whether you are going to India, whether you are staying here. We have package for every possible scenario you can imagine, right? So please contact us and avail and get the most out of our services. We look forward to talking to you guys. This is how you reach out to us. Can send us an email. You can register on our website, or you can directly call us, whichever way you feel like, right? So please, contact us, and we look forward to talking to you. Thanks, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Great.
everyone. Thank you, Kelly and Upaji, for presenting.
Yeah. Take care. Bye.
Great.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Bye bye.